Hey everyone, welcome to Whiteboard Friday, and today we're going to be talking about behavior-driven development. This is going to be part 2 of our series from last week. And today we're going to be talking about just an example. Again, keeping it pretty high level here, giving an example of using this coffee scenario that I'm sure you've seen over the internet on different forums. We're going to walk through that. And then I'm going to briefly mention some automation frameworks and kind of how to get the discussion rolling on trying to figure out what framework will work best for your development organization. Again, keeping that pretty high level. So let's go ahead and talk about kind of what really evolves around feature and scenario creation. So the first thing that, the last time we talked about behavior-driven development, we had this concept of the three amigos. And just to recap, those are the business owner, or the product owner rather, the tester, and the developer all coming together to formulate features and scenarios that are going to be streamlined into automated tests. And one of the example we're going to go over today is talking about a feature that you need to serve coffee. And so if we're going to take this kind of line by line here, is that one, the coffee should not be served until it's paid for. Everyone wants to make sure that you don't just go off and grab coffee, right? The next thing is that the coffee should not be served until a button has been pressed. And so it needs to be paid for, number one. But also there's some type of system function that allows that coffee to be served, and that's by a button. And then if there is no coffee, then the money should be refunded. And so out of this, we have a clearly defined way of how to actually serve coffee. It needs to be paid for. There's a button that actually pushes that out. And if you've already paid for it and there's really nothing there, then you're not supposed to get any coffee. And so out of that, you could build out tons of different scenarios that are going to drive that feature. And you notice that the feature is also pretty high level here. The scenarios are going to drive more specifications around that feature, and really kind of getting out of super documenting that feature, but allowing that scenario to kind of to formulate the feature for the business that's ultimately going to be the end user of this. And so as a scenario, we have a couple things in here that we want to highlight as well, and that is that we talked last time about this given and when then type of syntax structure that is very familiar, and it's called Gherkin style syntax structure. And the reason why we have that is, one, it's a clearly defined structure of how the scenario is going to be broken up, and a clearly defined grammar to be used there. Because what's going to happen is that after we write these lines here, they actually get translated into code that's going to be driven by these frameworks. And so as you walk through this scenario, the reason why we have this given when then is to clearly show the developer, the automator, exactly what needs to be automated. And it's also a great way to have a uniform language of talking about that scenario. Instead of having all different ways of writing something, we keep to this type of syntax structure. There's more syntax words you could use for this, but this is a typical way of doing that. So here's a scenario that we actually created, and that is that there is one coffee that's left in the machine, so there's still coffee to be given, and I've deposited $1, so I've paid for this. The next thing is that when I press the coffee button, then I should be served a coffee. And out of this scenario, we're really satisfying all the features that are here. You see that there is one coffee in the system, so nothing should be refunded. We see that we deposited it, so we paid for it. And also we see that when we press the coffee button here, that ultimately we do get that coffee. So the end product of that scenario really serves the feature that we were testing. And then we could build out even more scenarios here, right? If I had different size coffees, I could say that if there is one coffee left in the system that's a large, and I've deposited $5, let's say that the large coffee was actually $5, then I press the coffee button, then I should actually get the coffee that's being presented. So again, these scenarios can be as specific as you want them to be, but they're really trying to drive the feature that you're testing against. So that's kind of the way a scenario is structured. And again, what happens is each line in the scenario becomes code right away. So if you're using something like Java in your particular framework, then each line would become, let's say, a method in that test case or code that you're developing. And what that ultimately does is it allows you to easily take that grammar and build in an automated test case right away, rather than having to take this, do it manually, and then transfer it in there. If you have this structure, the syntax that's guided this way, and then supported by those popular frameworks, then you can streamline the code that's being created for that automated test as soon as that scenario has been complete. So let's talk about a few things here. Again, that as you're trying to think about BDD and you're thinking about, are you a .NET shop, are you a Java shop, are you a Ruby shop? These are some of the three, I would say not the most popular. Cucumber and JBehave are definitely, you could argue, are 1 and 2. But these are some frameworks here that you can leverage in your BDD implementation for your organization. Cucumber is considered like the grandfather of BDD, and it was actually created first in Ruby, but they came out with a Java as well. So if you look online, you can find a Cucumber for Java book on that. JBehave is primarily Java-based, but also uses a JRuby format as well. So if there's a mixture, you could use JBehave, and there's also EasyB that's outside of those. They're really using Groovy. That's also a great framework that all of them do this same type of scenario creation where you're doing that given when then Gherkin style formatting that streamlines that automated test case creation and also being able to produce value back all the way to the feature. So again, that was a quick little tutorial on an example to walk through the feature in the scenario. We also gave some high level frameworks and code bases. If you're thinking about getting into BDD, definitely check out these and definitely use this as an example to drive forward any implementation. So thank you for stopping by on Whiteboard Friday, and we'll see you next time.